If you're a Kenyan Drake hater, I want you to put on them earmuffs because you're probably not going to like this video. Kenyan Drake is one of my biggest breakout candidates for 2020. This is the Dalvin Cook of 2020, and I can say that because his ADP, top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty.
Take a lap. There is a lot of regurgitation going on in the fantasy football industry in regards to Kenyan Drake not having a track record. Kenyan Drake never being able to prove he's a starter. He can never put together a full season. Who falls in the same exact category and bucket that Dalvin Cook fell in 2019. I told Matthew Berry months ago that Kenyan Drake was the next Dalvin Cook. Kenyan Drake is one of my biggest breakout candidates for 2020. This is the Dalvin Cook of 2020, and I can say that because his ADP is in the second round, much like Dalvin Cook's was, and I feel like the writing's on the wall. The top 5 running back numbers are in the cards. He had, if you look at weeks 9 through 17 when the Cardinals acquired him, he was, depending on your scoring, 4 or 5 for running backs in 2019. That's huge. And then he had 363 yards and 7 TDs in his final 3 games. Now, this isn't smart math, but if you extrapolate that, that's like 1,900 yards and 37 TDs. I'm not saying he's going to come close to that. That's not good math.
That's good.
But that shows that this guy is coming out of 2019 on fire with momentum. The Cardinals wanted him. They're maturing. They acquired DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to stretch the field and make it virtually impossible for defenses to really focus on Kenyan Drake all year long with Kyler Murray moving around. What am I missing aside from injury that could keep him out of the top 5, top 6 running backs?
It's just it's lack of a track record. I don't have him as a top 5 guy the way you do, but I certainly listen. I think I have Kenyan Drake as an RB1, a lower end RB1. There's no question about it. You talk about what he did since he joined Arizona last year in week 9, averaged 18.9 touches a game, so the volume was there. Averaged over 100 scrimmage yards per game, 19.9 fantasy points per game in ESPN scoring, which was 3rd most among running backs. He played on 79% of snaps. That's the other thing, is he wasn't coming off the field, right? And to your point about, we know how much Cliff Kingsbury likes to throw the ball. He averaged 4.9 targets a game. That was 10th most among running backs. So he's basically getting 5 targets a game. And that was, just showing up and like, oh, by the way, here's the playbook. Hey, you might want to look at a couple of pages. Now he comes in the season knowing he's the guy. David Johnson's been moved to Houston. Chase Edmonds is a backup. They like him, but it's going to be Kenyan Drake. There's no question about it. So I think it's track record and injury history are the only concerns there, right? We just haven't seen him do it for a sustained period of time. It's not like he's a rookie. He's been in the league for a while. And he's a guy that, here's the other thing, is that he's never been a feature back in his NFL career. He was from week 9 on last year, but he wasn't at Alabama, and he never was at Miami under 2 different regimes, right? I mean, he had, sort of 2 different, wasn't under Brian Flores, wasn't under Adam Gase. No one has ever looked at Kenyan Drake and said, yeah, you're a workhorse. Why is that? We don't know. He was last year from week 9 on, and they've paid him. So the expectation certainly is he's going to be there.
Even if I accept that premise that he hasn't had a starting job for a full year, I understand the concern. But as Matthew Berry just pointed out, and as I've said over and over, how long can you hold that against him when he wasn't given the opportunity? Now, I could understand what Matthew's saying if he wasn't looking at starter type money. If the Cardinals didn't want to pay him and retain him as the starter, if there was a running back battle brewing, then I would get behind the thinking that, you know what, a team still isn't backing this running back. But they did. They bought in from week 9 on, and he delivered. The only argument is that other teams, other coaches didn't buy into him. That's the only argument. I don't buy into the fact that he wasn't productive enough. Let me tell you why. The guy's 6'1", 211, perfect frame for an NFL running back. Despite the missed game during the trade, then the bye week, all the chaos moving teams in 2019, he still got 50 receptions for 345. This right here is quietly one of the best pass catching backs in the entire league. Kenyan Drake could sleepwalk into 65, 70 receptions given he's going to have an entire offseason to absorb everything. But here are the stats that I really want to dig into. Kenyan Drake, not proven. Kenyan Drake failed in Miami. What makes you think Kenyan Drake can do it in Arizona when he couldn't do it in Miami? All of those dumb comments about Kenyan Drake's past. Let me tell you something about Kenyan Drake's failures in Miami. And no, I'm not talking about Matthew Berry. Matthew Berry and I essentially agree that Kenyan Drake is a potential stud in 2020. We just differ a little bit on where we see his upside. Berry's the GOAT. 2016, 5.4 yards per carry. He only got 33 carries. What do you want the man to do? He averaged 5.4 yards a pop. His next year, second year in Miami, 2017, 133 carries, 4.8 yards per carry, 644 on the ground, 3 TDs. 32 receptions, not bad for a guy that's totally underutilized. His third year, 2018, 120 carries, 4.5 yards per carry, 4 TDs, 53 receptions for 477 yards through the air. For a guy that's not even coined a starter, 32 receptions, 53 receptions. Are you noticing a trend that this guy's a PPR monster just waiting to break out? He's hiding in fantasy football worlds right now. Arizona's an ideal fit for him. 2019, the only year in Miami he didn't average well over 4 yards per carry, but his on the year sum total average was 4.8 yards per carry. And if you divide it up, his yards per carry in Arizona were 5.2 yards per carry. 3 100-yard games in half a year, 8 touchdowns in Arizona. If you look at every single one of his games from the point he got acquired from the Cardinals from week 9 on, and in week 9 he played the Niners and dropped 110 yards and a touchdown on the ground, by the way. 4 catches for 52 yards. From that game on, from week 9 on, the guy was on pace for 16 touchdowns on the year, 8 touchdowns in 8 games. He was also on pace for just about 1,300 total yards rushing on the ground. And if you want to get stupid and look at just his last 3 games, he finished on a pace that was 37 touchdowns on the year. If you extrapolate that out, whew! Now, no one's saying to do that. My point in that is that he's coming out of 2020 with momentum. 4 TDs in week 15, 2 TDs in week 16, and 1 TD in week 17. The guy went on a tear, and he wasn't even utilized all that much in week 10, week 11, week 13, and week 14. I love Kenyan Drake. The only thing I love more is the doubt around Kenyan Drake. Cuff him to Chase Edmonds, who had 27 carries for 126 and 3 TDs in week 7 before getting hurt, which led to the trade. Week 8 happened. Then in week 9 against the Niners, Drake came in as a starter from that point on out. Edmonds is talented. Edmonds could get you top 10 to 12 running back numbers if starting for this Arizona Cardinals offense. But Drake can drop top 5 to 10 running back numbers in this Arizona offense, which is impossible for defenses to really contain. And they can't worry about one single player like Drake. They've got to worry about Hopkins. They got to worry about Kyler Murray. The offense is too dynamic to pin down one player defensively on a game-by-game basis. Kenyan Drake's going to ball. Kenyan Drake's going to have open space. Kenyan Drake and Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of have a similar environment where there's so much talent around them. Defenses are going to be held completely honest all game long, all season long. And Drake and Clyde will be 2 of the best running backs in open space, and they couldn't be in more open environments than the Cardinals and the Chiefs. These are completely spread out attacks with the best runners for the job. These 2 guys are so good in open space. They're so good navigating open space and breaking off long runs, knifing through rushing lanes and gaps. And when people shake their head when I say this is the next Dalvin Cook, it's crazy. How is he not the next Dalvin Cook? Let's break that down. Like Dalvin Cook, Kenyan Drake was going at the end of the second round early on in the offseason, and I kept beating that drum like crazy. And yeah, I do feel like I had a lot to do with his ADP climb. You can call that arrogant or whatever, but we do a lot of mock drafting in the fantasy football show community. We drive a lot of that ADP data. And Kenyan Drake is getting finally the respect he deserves. He's going in the 12 to 14 range. Sometimes people do take him at 10, 11, 12. But in novice leagues where you're drafting with Bill from accounting and Bill doesn't realize that Kenyan Drake is climbing up the ladder, you're probably going to get Drake at 14, 15 overall. You'll probably even get one of those comments from Bill at the water cooler when you tell him that Kenyan Drake's a top 10, top 12 overall pick. He'll go,
Drake? In the first round?
You may even get one of those,
wow,
novice, magazine drafter. Even my mom knows that Kenyan Drake is top 12 material. Ma, the meatloaf! Is it ready? We want it now.
Put some panties on and grow up.
It's just a bit, babe. Miss Smitty. Kenyan Drake is on his way. Cook's upside was top 5, which people have very short memories about. Oh yeah, well clearly he had top 5 running back numbers. No, you didn't think that. All you Drake haters are going to say the same thing next year. Yeah, we saw the upside. No, you didn't. If you knew that right now, I wouldn't have to tell you he does. ADP data suggests that people are coming around, but I still get the eyeball emojis when I call him a top 5 to 7 running back in 2020, and I love it. Mark it down. Drake is going to be a top 5 to 7 running back in 2020. He's this year's Dalvin Cook. Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty,